Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today I'm going to talk to you about the John Deere green deck mowers of the late 90s and early 2000s. That's not to be confused with the mid to late 80s John Deere green decks that were made by OMC, which is Lawn Boy, and had a lot of Lawn Boy components. That's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about the 1997 to 2003 John Deere green deck lawnmowers, 21-inch. So these are commonly known as the John Deere JX75, the JE75, and the commercial version, the JX85. Now there are other variations, but those three are the ones that you're going to come across most commonly. And so the JX75 is basically the silver deck John Deere 14 SB that existed from 89 to 97. They changed over in around April or March of 1997 to the JX75, and it's essentially the same thing. There's no difference other than the color, and they've changed some of the labels, but same parts, same engine, same everything else. There wasn't a lot of difference. They sold hundreds of thousands of them. They were fantastic mowers. The JE75 is the electric start version, had a little 1 amp fuse, and it had a little 1 amp stator underneath the flywheel. So it had a starter, so therefore it had a different block casting, had a different flywheel, had a different, basically anything electronic was different. It had a battery that sat underneath the transmission cover here. And the JE75 is the 14 SE silver deck mower. Again, unchanged, still has the same Kawasaki FC150 engine. Fantastic engine, originally made in Japan, moved to Marysville, Missouri, production in late 1989 until the rest of the run until 2003. And then the JX75 continued on under a new deck style and also a Kawasaki FJ180V, which is 180cc instead of 150cc engine. Those, they weren't without their faults, but they weren't as great as the old FC150. And I don't have one on hand at the moment. So, you know, I have my custom green deck with the old 2-cycle Komatsu engine, Briggs & Stratton Komatsu engine. But the point being here is they were essentially the same mower as the silver decks. The JX85 was the commercial version of it. So the commercial version added the metal wheels, the metal wheel adjusters, the deck bracing on the side. It had a different transmission because the shaft was shorter, but internally it was still the same thing. The JX85 had that same Kawasaki FC150. You had an oil filter that you could have on the is either a dealer installed option, but on the commercial options, that oil filter came standard. The only design change that happened over the lifespan of the green deck mower was they changed on the Kawasaki FC150, they changed the shroud and the fuel tank and the fuel cap style, probably to fit other manufacturers' design requirements or something like that. But there wasn't anything inherently wrong with the old design. You just have to know that when you're buying a replacement fuel cap that there's two different versions. The older version up to mid 97 or so had kind of a ribbed, tall type of fuel cap, and the newer versions are larger and flatter and smoother as well. But it's a different shroud because it sits differently. It's the later versions kind of flat as opposed to kind of on an angle. And so that therefore there's a different shroud, there's a different fuel tank, there's a different fuel cap, but everything else is unchanged. So the engine underneath, everything's still the same, everything bolts on the same, no difference there. But yeah, that's really it. So basically you're just buying a newer version of the silver deck mowers from the late 80s and early 90s. The silver decks weren't without their flaws early on. They had some issues with the rear wheel adjusters, with the early blade clutch style, but when they switched over to a Warner style, which is the round style of blade clutch, no problems at all. They do have replaceable bearings that start to wear out over time. It's about 20 bucks to press those in and out, but that's really it. So they're great mowers. If you guys want to see more about these, I can do a deeper dive if you want, as far as production, things like that. I've been to the Greenville, Tennessee manufacturing facility. Fantastic facility. These mowers were made in USA. They did make an export model. They did make a version called a Sabre, which had, you could buy it at Lowe's or, I don't think Walmart, but you could buy it at Lowe's and Sears at the time, which it was basically the same deck, but it was different engine. It was a 2-speed transmission instead of a 5-speed, things like that, where it was, you know, sort of cheapened because you weren't paying a prosumer price, you were paying a consumer price. So the deck was the same, that was about it. So I can jump into that if that's what you guys want to see. Just let me know in the comments. So thanks again for watching, guys, and we'll see you soon.